All right, let's get into action. Thank you for coming. Welcome to Menageamayremi. The first erotic story that I wrote was published. It was called 3 Women in a Tub, and actually I'm going to share that with you tonight. So I'm not going to read the whole story because it's a little bit long, so I'm just going to get right to the sex part, if that's okay. There's a bit of a build-up, but we'll just forget the whole build-up, how we ended up here in the tub, but we ended up in the tub. So it's a hot tub place where you pay $25 and you get to be there for an hour or however long it was. And let's see, what is my even name? Well, I think I'm I, so you figure out my name because I changed the names. Danielle set up the candles and incense and put her Ella Fitzgerald back in the cassette player. I had to leave that part in to say, because the cassette player. You all know what a cassette player is, right? Okay. Because I was going to start at the next paragraph. I said, fuck, a cassette player. Okay. It's true. All true. Her Ella Fitzgerald. Meadow began to slowly undress next to the shower. I, being less shy, threw off my coat, sweater, shirt, pants, socks, and underwear until every goosebump on my body was revealed. As I dangled my toes in the hot water, I felt them look at my long, slim figure. Not wanting them to take their eyes away, I slowly lowered myself into the hot water. I closed my eyes and waited. As I sat alone in the tub, anxiety began to replace my earlier feeling of euphoria. What if I don't know what to do? What if I do it wrong? I reminded myself what had always enabled me to act out my fantasies, that I had a woman's body, and I knew what I liked. I smiled as I let go of the strands of hair I had been nervously twisting. Moments later, I sensed movement in the water around me. I kept my eyes closed. I felt a hand touch my face and gently move it. As I was pulled closer, I smelled the familiar breath of Danielle. Her lips barely touched mine. I opened my mouth and reached for her lower lip, held it for a moment, and then eased my tongue inside the wetness. I put my hands on her shoulders as her arms encircled my waist. We held each other, savoring the sweetness of our first kiss. I had been with at least 30 men, but never had a kiss felt so soft. Danielle reached for Meadow, and I backed up to watch. Danielle put both hands on the sides of Meadow's face and closed her eyes. I noticed Meadow kept hers open as Danielle placed her wet mouth on her lips. Her slow movements gently invited Meadow's tongue inside. Meadow wrapped her arms around Danielle's neck, and I moved in closer to experience their kiss. Danielle pushed against Meadow's quivering body, and soon her fingers were squeezing the pink flesh of Meadow's nipples. I massaged my own breasts as the rushing water tickled my clit. Moments later, Meadow turned and noticed me touching myself. I giggled nervously at being caught and took my hand away from my breast. It was the first time I had ever touched myself in front of another person. "No, don't stop," she whispered, just loud enough for me to hear. I paused for a moment. Still feeling self-conscious, I took a deep breath and closed my eyes again. I began massaging my breasts and squeezing my nipples between my thumb and forefinger. I knew they were watching me, and my breathing got louder as I pushed harder. After a while, I stopped. I opened my eyes and grinned. They pulled me toward them. The 3 of us put our arms around each other. We were kissing and laughing and rubbing breasts. Danielle looked at Meadow and then at me. I knew what she was thinking. This was Meadow's first time with anyone. Danielle moved behind Meadow and put her arms underneath hers. I got what she was doing and reached for Meadow's legs. Before she could protest, we lifted her. Her face, breast, belly, and pussy were bobbing out of the bubbles as we kept her afloat on her back. We each moved to one side of her body. A bit unsure, I watched Danielle first. She leaned down and took the tip of Meadow's right breast between her lips. I did the same with the left. I sucked, taken with a sensation of soft flesh and hard nipple at the same time. Her breasts were even larger than I thought. Danielle began to run her hand down Meadow's belly until she reached the top of her cunt. Meadow moaned as Danielle stroked her clit. I entered her pussy, pushing gently as the flesh spread to accommodate my finger. Page turn.
No wonder they're stuck together.
I know. Her legs began to shake and her body quivered with each stroke and entry, creating waves on the surface of the water. We worked Meadow's body until she let out a squeal, opening her eyes and motioning to be put upright again. We obeyed. My right hand moved slowly down her still quivering body and grasped the underside of her ass. Now her own fingers were rubbing the surface of her cunt. I moved closer and my clit pulsed as I rubbed it into her thigh. Her tongue moved slowly up my neck, over my chin, and into my mouth. She turned to press her breasts and pussy against mine. She wrapped her mouth around the tip of my breast. I watched as she sucked my nipple and caressed the flesh surrounding it. I felt her excitement and I pushed my chest out farther. I was about to come. I wanted to yell but wasn't sure how soundproof our little room was. I rubbed harder, imagining fingers pushing up inside my cunt. I imagined being spread wide, my body on top of Meadows as she sucked at my breasts. My ass in the air while Danielle fucked my cunt. I breathed louder and dug into the flesh of Meadows' ass. My thighs squeezed tightly around her leg as I came. I shivered and started to breathe deeply, slowly recovering from my orgasm. I was shaken out of my dizzy euphoria by a knock on the door. Our $25 hour was up. We looked at each other for a moment and moved into a three-way hug. We placed little kisses on each other's foreheads before stepping out of the tub. We giggled under the shower as we washed the chlorine from our bodies. I went home that night with the smell of Danielle's apricot-scented lotion rising from my skin and the sweet memory of two women's bodies meeting for the first time with my own. That's sweet. Thank you for indulging me. I haven't read that in a long time.
Wonderful story.
So sweet. By all of these incredibly talented writers. Okay, so this is a story that I wrote recently, and I'm just going to stick with the lesbian theme here. So, okay. So this is called Rush Hour. Okay. The El Taraval, heading into the Sunset neighborhood of San Francisco, always got too crowded at rush hour. If you got on early and grabbed a seat, you were lucky. You only had to deal with someone's backpack or purse pushing into your personal space. But if you were standing, you had to play a balancing game of keeping your footing and trying not to get shoved into someone else's body. Unless, of course, that's what you were looking for. Marina was 29 and had recently moved to San Francisco from the North Bay. She worked in an upscale women's clothing boutique where she couldn't afford to purchase the merchandise she was selling, but that didn't matter because she could hardly fit into most of it anyway. This didn't bother Marina. She had learned to love her curvy body. She had light brown skin and long dark hair and light eyes. She had the full hips and large soft breasts of the women in her father's family and the delicate facial features of her mother. One crowded evening, she found herself standing next to a woman she had noticed several times before on the train. The woman was striking looking, with chin-length, shiny black hair, dark eyes, and full lips. She was always well dressed, and this evening she had on a black business suit and black flats. Marina guessed she was in her 40s. The first time Marina noticed her, she caught the woman looking her over. Tonight was the closest they'd ever been to each other, and Marina couldn't help noticing her long fingers with well-manicured, yet short nails. She looked fit and confident, and Marina began imagining what her body looked like under the suit. As more people shoved their way onto the crowded train car, Marina took advantage and shifted so they were facing each other. Marina had never been with a woman before. This is a theme, huh? First time. Meeting men was easy. They gravitated to her sensuous body and pretty face. But she hadn't come to San Francisco to meet men. After being in town 1 month, she had gone to some gay bars with a guy friend, but was nervous to approach anyone. Her lack of experience made her shy, but in her gut she felt that if she only got the chance, her body would fit perfectly with another woman's. Finally, the car reached its limit of passengers, and Marina found herself pressed against the stranger's body. Marina's lavender sundress showed just a hint of cleavage, and she breathed deeply, feeling her chest rise and fall. She was wearing little black heels that made her just tall enough so they were close in height. Marina's soft curves contrasted with the sleek, muscular body of the stranger. Marina lowered her eyes, afraid of the intensity she felt, and made the slightest movement with her pelvis. The woman responded with a similar subtle gesture. Oh God, Marina thought, she wants this. They were well insulated, people all around, squeezed tightly in. Who would suspect? No one was looking, no one would know. Marina's pussy tingled as she moved her hips gently back and forth. Her arms stayed still and close to her sides. Her eyes closed and her chest pushed forward. Marina could feel her nipples harden against her white satin bra. Her breath quickening, her muscles taut. They kept their heads turned just slightly to the side, perhaps instinctively avoiding looking into each other's eyes to keep from losing control. Yes, oh yes, Mama, she thought. Fuck me slowly. Marina's silent pleas were answered. The stranger began grinding, slowly yet forcefully, into Marina's body. Marina had wanted this for so long. Hips undulating, breasts pushing, breath deepening. Marina felt her pussy opening up. She wanted so badly to touch herself, to sink into her own wetness. She had masturbated to the fantasy of a woman fucking her many times, and now it was so close. She wanted to lift her dress, but feared drawing attention. It only made the waves building in her body rush harder and push deeper. This was the most beautiful frustration Marina could imagine. All around them, the passengers moved as one to the rhythm of the train's movement, packed so tightly in they could smell each other's sweat. But they remained in their own world. Some wore headphones, others read, all fighting to maintain whatever personal space they could claim, while Marina and the stranger eagerly invaded each other's. The slightest movement sent tingles racing through Marina's entire body. Her pussy pulsated, her clit swollen. She felt sure her panties were soaking wet. Her body was begging to be filled when suddenly the stranger shifted her blazer down towards their hips and obscured her hand from view as she moved it up Marina's dress. In her panties and expertly plunged 2 fingers inside, as deep as she could go. Then slowly moving back and upwards, pausing for a moment at her G-spot, and gently pulling out and stroking along the side of her clit before diving back in again, this time with 4 fingers. Her thumb outside, teasing close to Marina's clit. How was it that this seductive stranger knew Marina's body instinctively? Marina wanted to spread her legs. She opened her thighs as much as she could while keeping her feet planted on the dirty subway floor. She could no longer keep her hands at her side. She grabbed one firm cheek of the stranger's ass and with the other hand pushed upward on the stranger's wrist, asking her, begging her to push deeper, to fill her. If only she could lie down, put her ass up in the air, spread herself completely. She felt the stranger's gaze and looked up into her dark eyes as Marina felt her orgasm wash over her. Her body shuddered and Marina felt if she didn't sit down, she would fall down. Her legs were shaking as the sexy stranger carefully removed her hand. Marina grabbed a hold of the steel pole closest to her to steady herself. As if on cue, the car began to clear out of people as people arrived at their stops. And Marina and the woman moved away from each other. Soon seats opened up. Marina sat and with still shaking hands managed to brush the front of her dress down. She was aware of her own earthy, musky scent. She could hear her breath and felt sure everyone around her could hear it as well. Yet none of that mattered as much as the thought, would she see her again? Could she look into her beautiful eyes and thank her for the gift she had received? She kept her eyes focused downward, afraid of meeting anyone's gaze. 2 more stops and she would be home. Marina's mind was racing. Do something, look up, talk to her. Suddenly she heard the click-click of a woman's shoes. Marina looked up. I think you dropped this. The stranger, who no longer felt like a stranger to Marina, said with a slight smile. She handed Marina her business card. Hardly breathing, Marina took the card and managed to mouth the words, "Thank you."